If you can keep doing the same thing over and over again, and on the millionth time, you still have just as much enthusiasm for it as the first or second time when it felt like a novel thing to you, you've found your thing. You found your successful thing.
So what if every dollar you're already spending on your business could fund first-class flights and five-star hotels without opening a single new credit card? Does that sound interesting? Well, today's guest has cracked that code. I want to welcome you back to the root of all success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan. This is episode number 334. My guest is Julia Menez. She's a travel strategist, a points coach, and founder of the company Geo Breeze Travel. She's a former actuary who traded spreadsheets and boarding passes. You know, she's traded that for something greater. She wants to go out and teach us how to travel perhaps for free and in a better, higher class style. She's built a system that helps business owners and high cash flow professionals turn everyday spending into luxury travel, luxury experiences. And her podcast has inspired over 400,000 followers. She's been recognized by CNN as underscored as one of the top travel coaches in the country. She's been featured in the New York Times, Money Magazine, Business Insider, and I've seen her on Instagram, and now she's here on my show for us to learn from. Julia, welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Jason, thank you so much for having me on the show. It is an honor to be here.
Well, you know, most people hear this idea of travel hacking, you know, it's all over. Everybody seems to talk about it. And they picture someone juggling 20 credit cards, trying to figure out how to game the system. And frankly, if I'm being totally honest, that's why I don't do it. Because I've attempted at times like, oh, if I did this, I can, like, it's just too much work. So, but you've built a system that does the opposite. So what are the biggest myths about points and miles that's costing entrepreneurs a lot of real money?
For sure. Before I dive into all of the different mistakes that people make and what they should probably do instead, I just want to acknowledge you for building the show. I listened to a couple of episodes to prepare for this. I host a podcast myself, so I know it is a lot of hard work. You guys are building so much impact here. I just want to take a quick second to ask all of our listeners to leave a 5-star review for this show so we can impact even more people, because we are going to drop so many great gems in this episode today. But as far as mistakes that people are making, a lot of people just don't even know that this exists. Or maybe they do know that credit card points exist, but there's so many different like myth-buster things that we are constantly having to do. Like, do you need 20 credit cards? Is this going to take hours of your time where it's almost a full-time job for you to learn how to make redemptions and use your points in an effective way? Are you going to have to connect 16 times over 14 different cities in order to make an itinerary work? We can dive into all of that today, but we can make it a lot more simple than what a lot of people are afraid that it's going to turn into.
So how do you, this is not a scripted question. I always tell my guests before I script these questions ahead of time, but I'm so genuinely interested in this. I've got to dig in a little bit on this. So this is not scripted, but what's the big thing that you could say, here's why you don't need 1,500 credit cards and spend a full-time job figuring this out? What is it that you figured out? What's the big idea here?
The big idea is transferring your points to different airline and hotel partners. So if you have Chase points, American Express, Capital One, any of those big cards where there are transfer partners, like you can move your points over to United, British Airways, Air Canada, Singapore Airlines, that's what's going to be key. So many people think that the way to do this is you earn those points on your credit cards, you put your expenses on American Express, and then you do statement credits, where you say, okay, this ticket was $5,000. Now I have to spend 500,000 points in order to wipe that from my statement credit and get free travel. Not how it works. So that's where a lot of people are like, it is ungodly expensive in order to cover any of these business class or first class flights with points, because they're just cashing out their points at 1 cent per point. The key instead is to see how much these airlines are charging for the same flight on their own website. And then if you can transfer your points over and then use them on the airline's websites, you'll be paying a fraction of the price. And that's where it can get a little bit technical. We can dive into that more today. But the big idea here is to learn the different matrix of transfer partners instead of just cashing out your points.
So let me ask another kind of dig in unscripted question, but this is we're getting in the weeds really early. But I think listeners are going to want to know this stuff. It's very, very interesting to me. So I'll just use myself as an example. I have an Amex card. I have points on the Amex card, but honestly, the only thing I ever use them for, it's attached to my Amazon account, and I can just go buy free stuff. And so my wife was asking me yesterday. She goes, "When are we going to spend those Amex points?" I said, "I'm actually saving up because I want to buy a new computer, and I can get my computer for free on my points through Amazon." So that's really the extent of what I use the points for. For flights, I'm a pretty simple traveler. I don't go overseas. I only travel domestically. I'm a Southwest guy. I have a Chase Southwest card, and I very rarely have to pay for flights because I put everything on that Chase card. And so I fly on Southwest. So what is it practically in that scenario that I'm missing? I know that's not a lot of detail, but what would I be missing?
So, if you're not traveling internationally, it is more difficult to get the outsized value out of your points. A lot of the times where we're getting really, really high value, it's because we're having our clients fly business class overseas with the lay flat seats. And if they're doing first class instead of business class, that's where you get the Dom Perignon champagne, the caviar in the seats. You get pajamas that they give you on the flight. There's amenity kits with like Vulgari perfume inside the amenity kit. So it can get really luxurious really fast. But the outsized value for a lot of the points is for international business class or first class flights. That being said, you can still get a lot of value out of points domestically. The strategy there, I think, would be more so to go for higher end hotels. So with Chase, you just have the Chase Southwest card. Is that correct? You don't have something like the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Chase Inc. business
Yeah,
card.
I've just started with the Chase Southwest because when I got the credit card, it's like, well, I fly Southwest. This makes sense. I end up flying for free. That's the only reason I did that card.
If instead you have flexible points with a Chase Sapphire card, a Chase Inc. business card, those will still transfer over to Southwest, but those will still transfer over to Southwest, but you will have a lot of other options as well. So you could move your points over to United if you needed to pay for United flights. Or what I like to use my Chase points for would be Hyatt hotels, because then you can stay at some hotels starting at 5,000 points per night if you want to go for more of the lower end hotels like Hyatt Place or Hyatt House. Or if you wanted a really nice hotel like Park Hyatt, New York, which can go for many thousands of dollars per night, then that's probably 40, 45,000 points with Hyatt for one night of stay there. I've used Hyatt points for a variety of different all-inclusives in the United States, like Alila Ventana Big Sur, which is in California, a couple hours outside of San Francisco. There's the Miraval Hotel Collection. They have one in Austin, one in Tucson, Arizona, and one in Berkshires, Massachusetts. Those are all-inclusive as well. Or if you're doing a short hop from the United States, but maybe over to the Caribbean, there's a lot of great all-inclusive Hyatt hotels in the Caribbean or in Mexico too. So Chase points are great if you want to use them for Southwest. I like to say there's not really a good or bad redemption with Southwest because it's always a fixed ratio. But if you want to travel domestically, then the hotels are a great strategy there.
On the Southwest, as far as points go, and I promise this will be my last detailed question, and we'll get into the story. But I've looked at times when I was running low on points where I would just buy. I think, well, let me just buy some points to get me to what I need. And every time I run that through ChatGPT, because I have ChatGPT, I have a project set up just to do travel stuff, and say, does it make sense to buy these points, or should I just pay for the extra ticket? And every single time it said pay. I've never had a time when ChatGPT said, yeah, buying the points makes sense. Am I missing something? Is ChatGPT leading me wrong?
I often don't depend on ChatGPT for points questions, but in this case, it is correct. With Southwest points, I would not buy those points because usually when you're redeeming the points, you'll get a value of about, I think it's 1.2 to 1.3 cents per point on the using side. On the purchasing end, you're still probably paying 1.5 to 2 cents per point, depending on the sale. So it would be better to just buy the flights because you're losing money if you're buying the points than redeeming the points on the Southwest flights.
Yeah,
That
Southwest is becoming more and more of a. I'm not as a big a fan as I used to be with all the changes they've made recently. And I know this is not a bash Southwest moment, but the points is one issue. But now there's this assigned seat thing, and you got to pay to sit in the exit row extra. I mean, it's really crazy what they're doing. But I digress. So
one more
go ahead.
One more thing on Southwest, though, the promotion that they have that's still fantastic is their companion pass. So you would need 135,000 points earned in a calendar year, but then once you have that, you can bring a companion on any flight that you're on for just the cost of taxes, which oftentimes is about $5.60 per flight if you are traveling domestically in the United States. So you don't need to put $135,000 onto your Southwest card. For anybody listening to this who's a business owner, the strategy would be open a couple of Southwest business credit cards. There's 2 of them available, or you can get 1 business card, 1 personal card. And then just between meeting the sign-up bonuses on those cards, you'll sail right past 135,000 points. Now,
So well, let me ask you, is it worth doing that just for that purpose? Like, I don't need another Southwest card, but the sign-up points, would that get me the companion pass? Is it worth it?
Depends on how much you guys are flying on Southwest, because if you were to take, here's the cost that I'm currently spending for my partner to join me on every Southwest flight, if that's a significant amount of money, you could get that for almost free for up to 2 years. You just need to make sure that the points post as early as possible in 2026, because that way you'll have companion pass for all of 2026 as soon as those points post, plus all of 2027. I think we're late enough now in 2025 that people can't mess up the timing of this, but we have so many people who sign up for this promotion in September or October, their points post too early, and then they just have companion pass for the rest of 2025, which is just 1 or 2 months at that point, plus all of 2026. So they miss out on 10 months of buy one, get one free flights that way. But
Is there a workaround there? Like, cause I just got a new Southwest card, I think in September. I think I'd have to go back and look, for one of my other businesses. And it didn't even occur to me that the companion pass would apply to that. Is there a workaround? Could I call and say, hey, I just need you to apply these for 2026 and 7?
If you've met the sign-up bonus already, it's going to be hard to do that. You could try to just, we're in early December already. You could try to just get it for 2025 into 2026, or if you have 1 sign-up bonus that posts in 2025 and 1 in 2026, that's the worst case scenario, because then your 135,000 points aren't earned in a calendar year. It's split between 2 calendar years. So then, yeah.
Interesting. Well, this has been really intriguing. So let's get back to your story. So you were an actuary before you became a travel strategist. So what was this moment when you realized that crunching numbers for insurance companies, that wasn't your path, and that teaching people to travel smarter was your path?
I honestly thought I was going to be an actuary forever. I got into it when I was 14. I went to actuary camp when I was 17. It's a thing. It's like normal camp, except they put insurance spins on everything. So like we would go bowling one day, and then you would collect data on how many strikes the other team got. And based off of that, you would try to like predict how many strikes they're going to get on day 2 and take out strike insurance. Yeah, it was like normal camp, but they put math lessons into each one. I was so excited for this at age 17, and majored in actuarial science, was in the industry for 9 years. And one of the things that you do as an actuary is you spend a ton of time passing your certification exams. One day, I was done with that, got my certifications, and suddenly had so much time on my hands and a lot of energy. And my husband was like, you need a hobby. You need to do something with all of this energy. So he pointed me to a couple of personal finance blogs. And then from there, I learned about points and miles and credit cards. And I thought, this sounds kind of scammy. Like, you're opening credit cards and then you get these points and then you get free business class flights. That sounds a little bit ridiculous. But I kept hearing about this. So eventually we tried it with a couple cards, and our first redemption was actually an accident. We had booked just a regular trip vacation over to Morocco. We had a tour guide who was handling everything, picking us up from the airport, all of the excursions, hotels, accommodations, all of that. He had to cancel on us. 20 hours before we were landing in Africa because of a family emergency. So we didn't have a place to stay in Morocco. And I'm panicking. I had just opened this American Express SPG card. That hotel chain doesn't even exist anymore. They got acquired by Marriott. But I'm like reading a script off of a blog post saying, hi, I get free hotel stays with this. And they said, yeah, you have enough points for 3 nights in Casablanca. And I said, perfect, let's do that. And when I got there, I had like my printed off confirmation in hand. I'm like, this isn't going to work. We're going to be homeless in Morocco. But to my surprise, it worked. We got upgraded to a nicer room because I had membership through that credit card. We had lounge access for free breakfast and cocktail hour. And from then, I was pretty hooked. So it just started as a hobby before even turning into a business. But that's how I got into the game of points and miles around 2017.
Wow, that's a great story. I'm sure you tell that story a lot, but that is a really good story. So your platform now has become a voice for first generation travelers and people who don't typically see themselves as travel hacking people. Why was that representation important to you from the start?
So when I started my podcast around the pandemic, I mostly just wanted to talk to people about this crazy hobby. My family was very tired of hearing me talk about it. My non-points friends were very tired of hearing me talk about airline award charts and all the cool things they can do with credit card points. So during the pandemic, I just started reaching out to people on Instagram who were into points. Nobody really looked like me at the time, but I was just taking anybody who would want to hang out with me online for an hour. So just DMing people on Instagram saying, hi, do you want to hang out for an hour online? We're all stuck inside. Do you want to talk about points? And they said, no, who are you? This is very strange to just DM, like you're cold DMing people asking, do you want to tell me your point secrets of how you're doing all of this? So I said, what if I record our conversation and release it to thousands of people on the internet? And at that point, thousands was 2,000, maybe. And they said, oh, you're doing a points podcast? I would love to be featured. And I really just wanted to feature more people from all different walks of life so that more people could see themselves into this hobby as well. I think we've made great strides over the last 5 years. Now, if you search for points and miles on Instagram, the voices talking about this are much more diverse than they were in 2020. And I like to think my podcast is a little bit of an impetus for that. But yeah, back in the day, there was nobody looking like me, even just 5 years ago, talking about this online in this space.
Well, so building Geo Breeze to over 400,000 followers is no small feat. So, and this is relatively new. I mean, we're talking within the last 5 years. So what's a moment along the way where you seriously question whether this is actually going to work or not?
The question isn't when you're losing. I think the hardest part in business is when you win and then you find out all the people who didn't want you to win, where people really like cheering for underdogs. And then one day, maybe you go viral over the course of a week. I think there was one week where I went from 38,000 followers to over 100 over the span of a week because 3 of my posts went viral at the same time. And there was another moment in time where I got some brand collaborations with some very large brands, and some people who I thought were cheering for me got upset about that. And those are the harder moments. It's not when things don't go according to plan, because then you have people who are saying, it's okay, you'll get through it, like I can cheer for you. The harder moments, and I think you've probably had some of these as well, is when you actually have a win and then you're searching through your phone being like, who do I even tell this win to? If you have a really good sales week or you land a really good partnership and there's a lonely feeling of, oh, who's there to celebrate with me? Those are the times where I'm just like, okay, how much more do I want to win in this space? But you just power through it. And then as you level up more, you find even more people who are at that level who will cheer for you, which is great.
That's a real, Julia, I've asked versions of that question to a lot of people, and that's a very intuitive, like that's, it says a lot about you and your character. So I think that's a very interesting answer. So thank you for saying that. Next question, a lot of entrepreneurs are sitting on massive business expensive software, whether spending money on ads on Google or Meta, travel, payroll, whatever. I think about, for example, one of the expenses I have that I just recently have considered whether to do credit card or just ACH was my accounting. My accounting, I pay accounting like a recurring every month for them to do my accounting and bookkeeping. And they charge me, I think it's 3% if I put it on a credit card. They don't charge me anything if I just pay ACH. And for a couple of years, I was paying on the credit card, and I got to doing the math. I'm like, that 3% isn't getting me the points on the Southwest card, right? The Southwest Chase card. It's not, that's not helping me. So just this, probably within the past 6 months, I switched over to ACH. But what's the first thing that you would tell a business owner who never really thought about those dollars they're spending in a strategic way? What would you say about things like that?
If you're looking for the simplest answer, I would get a card that every time, if you have to pay that extra 3%, it's still worth it for you. The one that comes to mind is the Capital One Venture X for Business, because it just very simply earns at least 2 points per dollar everywhere. And so if you have to pay an extra 3% fee, you get 2 points per dollar. And then as long as you can do some basic transfers and use your Capital One miles well, then you would get at least 2 cents per point, probably on the redemption side. So you earn 2 points per dollar, you get at least 2 cents per point. It's like you pay an extra 3%, but you gain another 4%. So you're netting 1% over that. That's the math of the cost benefit analysis of if it's worth it to pay those extra fees. I oftentimes do pay those extra fees where I have vendors who will charge the extra 3%, or a lot of my staff are contractors where I just pay them through PayPal and I have my credit card linked up behind PayPal. I tell them to just invoice me an extra 3% on top of whatever their monthly invoices are. I cover that exchange fee for them because I'm earning credit cards on the back end. So it's important to do that cost benefit analysis of, okay, if I have to pay a little bit extra, is it worth it? Do I gain enough out of it? If you're using a Southwest card, it's better to just do ACH. If you're using something with flexible points like Capital One or even the Chase Inc. Business Unlimited would earn 1.5 points per dollar everywhere. If you're getting at least 2 cents per point on the redemption side, then it'll be break even. I can usually get more than 2 cents per point. I can get 3 or 4 or 5 or more. So for me, it is worth it. And if any business owners are like, how do I squeeze out more out of my points? That's what we're here to help with.
Well, I think I guess what I'm hearing from you, Julia, is that I've been thinking a little too small on all this. I'm just thinking narrowly. Hey, I fly on Southwest. Let's use the Southwest card, put all the experiences on that, and then I get to fly for free. But I'm not thinking about this strategically because none of my payroll do I put on a credit card. And I do have contractors. It's not just W-2. And there's a lot of expenses that are recurring that I'm not putting on a credit card. And it's primarily because I've done what little math I know how to do, and it didn't make sense. But what you're saying is I'm thinking too small. So I appreciate that perspective. So we're going to get back to Julia in just a moment. But first, I'm assuming you're an entrepreneur because you're listening to this show and you want to build a business that runs without you. Well, I've got something for you. So listen, I want you to go register for a free live training that I'm doing today. I'm doing tomorrow. I do it practically every day of the year. It's called What to Fix Before You Exit. What to Fix Before You Exit. You go to whattofixbeforeyouexit.com. I will walk you through 7 things that you need to fix before you even think about selling your business. It's free. It's a pre-recorded webinar you can watch pretty much any time. And it is not a sales pitch in disguise. It's actual real training, and it'll change how you think about your company. That's whattofixbeforeyouexit.com. Now, I want to take a moment just to talk about today's episode sponsor, Bank on Yourself. If you're ready to take control of your business cash flow, you want to create your own private source of funding, and you want to transform the way that you build wealth, I want you to imagine that there is a proven strategy designed for entrepreneurs that lets you access capital when you need it without having to go to a bank, without having gatekeepers checking your credit or tedious applications if you want a loan at a bank. This approach lets you get your money and help it grow year over year, giving you liquidity for investments, for expansion, and it can protect your savings from market shocks. You can set your own terms for borrowing and repayment and keep your business moving forward with confidence. And a lot of savvy entrepreneurs around the country are unlocking freedom with this method. So if you want to learn how to bank on your own success, go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. And you can book a confidential session with a specialist who can show you exactly how this strategy fits into your financial goals. That's therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. And you can take charge of your financial future today. So now let's get back to the show. So Julia, you coach high-end cash flow professionals, people who could just pay full price for travel. So why do you think optimizing points even matters when money might not be the issue at all?
I find that a lot of business owners enjoy the game of optimization, and sometimes they want to get into the weeds. Sometimes they just prefer to have the answers done for them. But we also find that a lot of people enjoy the game of not letting stuff go to waste. It's just gravy on top if you already have all of your personal finances set into place, if you've already built a business that scales and maybe you're paying for ad dollars and those ads bring in clients and leads, and then that's just funneling more of your business so you can keep scaling. Those ad dollars could be earning 4 points per dollar with something like the Amex Business Gold. That's the card that I use to run our ads. And it's just leaving money on the table if you're already traveling anyway, because who wouldn't want to save tens of thousands of dollars on their travel budget if instead that could go towards your next business venture or investments, retirement, something else. I think as an efficiency nerd, I kind of cringe at the whole, oh God, they're leaving so much money on the table and we can make so much more out of that.
What is a travel redemption that you've helped a client pull off that still makes you smile?
Oh, anytime we can get one of those aspirational first class bookings, those are fantastic. They're becoming harder and harder to book over the years because more people are learning about these sweet spots, but they can still be done. So, for example, my husband and I have flown in Singapore suites. You get a double bed in the sky. So you have like not just a seat, you have a separate seat and a bed that you can sleep in. And then they can take down the wall between the two beds. So it's like a full size bed. You get pajamas, you get a really nice amenity kit, you get lobster on a plane. So that's something that we've booked for clients as well. We've booked a few Emirates first class options where that's the one with the Dom Perignon champagne. There's caviar. There's a bar where you can hang out with all of your friends, even if just business class there. The lounge access is fantastic. We have booked many, many large family retreats to Greece or Paris or South America, where it can be a challenge to find multiple seats on the same plane, but we help families do that as well. And oftentimes people tell me this is their first time flying internationally in a lay flat business class seat where they're not cramped in a tiny economy middle seat at the back of the plane with everybody who's just angry and there's no baggage space or anything. You get escorted through the red carpet priority line at the airport. You get complimentary food and drinks in the lounge. You enter the plane and you're like, it is totally normal to just eat a full dinner 30 minutes after I ate a full dinner in the lounge because the catering is so good. You get to use real forks. It's like a small thing, but eating with real forks and drinking out of a real glass on a plane is fantastic. Your blanket is probably from Saks Fifth Avenue or White and Company, a British thing, where it's like the down comforter, super nice stuff. It's not the plastic dentist cover up thing that they give you in economy. So it's just every piece of your trip is heightened and you don't dread going to the airport. You're like, let's go a little bit early. Let's get a little bit more lounge time. Let's collect all of the amenity kits. My Christmas tree this year, Jason, is instead of ornaments, I threaded all of my little amenity kit bags and I just have an entire amenity kit Christmas tree. So it's a fun lifestyle.
So the name of this show is The Root of All Success. So it's time for me to ask you about that concept. So what do you believe, Julia, is your one key to success?
In points and miles, it would be the transfer partners. But more broadly, outside of that, I think it's the company you keep and how well you keep them. So much in the world of points, like the deep, deep stuff, you don't learn from podcasts. You're definitely not learning it from Instagram or airline websites, it's going to conferences, it's meeting people in person. It's those late night conversations that you have at 2 a.m. in the hallway because everybody's nerding out about this thing and everybody wants to talk about the cool new trick that they found for how to optimize their points and miles further. So, yeah, I think the root of all success is the company you keep and how well you can keep them.
How do you personally define that word success?
I think success is if you can keep doing the same thing over and over again, and on the millionth time, you still have just as much enthusiasm for it as the first or second time when it felt like a novel thing to you, you found your thing. You found your successful thing.
Based on that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
With points and miles, absolutely. Even though I have a team that does all of our award searching and I have a sales team, I have outsourced many parts of my business to people who are probably at this point much more capable than I am. I still enjoy those days where I tinker with it a little bit, or maybe somebody's out of office. It happens a lot in the holidays. I'm like, I can still take a sales call. I can still run a client award search. I can still run a client success meeting. And it's like the novelty actually comes back when, as a business owner, you're like, I can still do frontline work. So I would say yes, because I still have that enthusiasm for so many of the different front-facing facets of the business.
Now, if you had to put on your coaching hat for just a second to entrepreneurs who are listening to the show, what would be your best piece of advice for an entrepreneur?
For an entrepreneur looking to exit or scale their business and everything, I think a lot of it comes down to learning how to let go of certain things. It's I know that so many of our businesses, it's like our babies. We built it from the ground up. A lot of us are just, we started as solopreneurs. It maybe started as a hobby. It starts at 3 a.m. where you're just tinkering around with something and then you build something. But as it grows, eventually you're going to need to let go of some of those business functions, whether it's just bookkeeping or whether it's managing an inbox, building some automations, maintaining a website. Exercising that trust muscle and learning how to identify good talent and nurture good talent, retain it, I think is one of the key pieces in the journey of entrepreneurship. It's a constant work in progress for me, but I have a few team members now where I'm very proud that they're on the team.
All right. Thank you so much, Julia. I've got 3 rapid fire questions for us to close the show today. Are you ready?
I hope so.
All right. Best airport in the world for a long layover.
Oh, Singapore airport, no doubt. It is fantastic. They have so much free stuff for you to do in there.
All right. One destination that exceeded every expectation beside the Singapore airport.
My favorite destination, one of them is Istanbul, Turkey. All of the food there, like the meat, the cheese, the pastries, everything, when I bit into it, I was like, this is what it's supposed to taste like, where it's just no preservatives. The bread is so fresh. Istanbul, Turkey, not just for food, but for pretty much everything, architecture, culture. Check out Turkey.
All right. Last one, window seat or aisle seat, and why?
Very much a window seat person. I like just staring out into the sky as I fly. I don't usually need to get up and move too much, especially if I'm in a business class seat, then I have enough leg room. I don't need to get up and stretch by taking a walk. Also, one of my bucket list items is hopefully to take a flight during a meteor shower one day and see a shooting star out of the side of a plane. That would be fantastic. So definitely keeping my eye out of the window for all of those.
All right. So Julia Menez, and that's at geobreezetravel.com. You can follow her on Instagram, also at Geo Breeze Travel, or on YouTube at Geo Breeze Travel. Julia, is there any other specific things you want to talk about or give away or promote today for my listeners?
Yeah. So, Jason, one of the things that I love about you and your show is that you are constantly showing up for your audience. So, I just want to thank everybody for listening to this episode, hanging out until the end of the show. So, I have a couple things that I want to give away. Before I do, let me explain who this is for. So, this is for business owners or high cash flow individuals who are afraid they're leaving money on the table when it comes to traveling and with points and miles. So, the first thing that I'm giving away is my free hotel upgrade email template. I have used this at many, many hotels around the world. Many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of my followers have also done the same to get free upgrades and amenities. So that's the first one, is the hotel upgrade email template. And then the second one is our potential savings calculator. This one's not even released online. We just use this internally. But this calculates exactly how much money you're leaving on the table when it comes to your travel based off of your expenses. How many points could you be earning on those? And how much travel could you get out of your points? If you want both of those completely free, just send me a message on Instagram. My Instagram is at Geo Breeze Travel. DM me the word podcast 2025, all one word, podcast 2025, and I will send you both of those resources completely for free.
Well, Julia, thank you again so much for being here and sharing some of your insights, and then also sharing a little bit of your story. I appreciate the posture that you have about what you do, and it's very approachable and down to earth. And I think I appreciate it. I know the listeners appreciate that too. So congratulations on all your success, and I hope that we can maybe collaborate on some other stuff in the future. But thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, there you have it. Another successful entrepreneur sharing her story about what she does and how she became successful. And what's interesting about this to me, if it is not already very apparent, is that even though I'm a domestic traveler and I don't really consider myself much of a travel person anyway, is that there are still things that you can do to maximize the dollars that you're spending. And I think we just barely scratched the surface, or the tip of the iceberg, as they say, with what Julia shared with us today. So I would encourage you to go check her out, geobreezetravel.com or Geo Breeze Travel on Instagram, and then DM her the word podcast 2025 so that you can get those 2 free resources. You can get the free hotel upgrade email template. You can also get that potential savings calculator. But this is interesting stuff, and I'm glad that I was able to interview her today on the show. But I'm also very glad that you're listening. Thank you for listening to the show. It means a lot that you're sticking through and listening. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that. And make sure you tune in again next week when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am your host, the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.